Welcome guys, welcome to the channel, and in this video we take a look at a game from yet another Brazilian designer. Now I do apologize if I mispronounce the name. Cesar Capatle. I think that's how you pronounce it. I do apologize if it's wrong. And this is a game that again you guys should really take a look at. Now I have found this game in 3 places. It's a downloadable PDF. I have found it on itch.io, I have found it on Drive-Thru-RPG, and I've also found it at PNP Arcade, which is the cheapest. I will put the links in the description below so you guys can go and download after the video, because I really do think this is a game that you should be taking a look at. Now, before we continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and feel free to add some comments. It all adds to that damn algorithm and gets this video noticed. And we do want to spread the word of all these games, yeah? Let's get away from Games Workshop and Wizards of the Coast. Let's reach out for other games. Okay, also, before we get into the game and the rules themselves, which is here, scraps. I would like to say that this book was a real pleasure to read. The layout, the labeling, and the overall writing were really easy to follow and understand, with very clear and helpful examples and diagrams. Also, another little thing that I really appreciated was little subnotes on every table, indicating where they are being referenced from inside the rules. So it's very easy to see where the tables are being used, not just referencing the tables on every page. Big thumbs up, and like I say, this was a real pleasure to read, a real pleasure to understand. And I really wanted to highlight that, because it's something that some rules and some rule books are not the best at, in terms of, like I say, the rule book design and layout and things like that. Excuse me. Some rule books can improve, and I do like this one. I think this is a very good example for people to look at and hopefully follow it. Like I say, the layout and the design within. What else? Well, when you purchase this, scraps, you also get something else which I really appreciate, and that is a separate document with all the tables. Just the tables from the book, in one handy little document that you can print out, so that once you've got the hang of the game, you don't really need to have the rule book, you just need to have this little tables document. Very, very handy. And again, something that I wish a lot of other games would do and have. So, big thumbs up so far from me. Right, off we go. Let's give ourselves an intro to the game. Scraps. This isn't your normal role-playing game, and this ain't your mama's board or card game. This is a crafting game, which includes exploration. It has puzzle-solving elements, and where role-playing and journaling add to the game tremendously. How would I label this? Maybe a roll and write, maybe a journaling RPG, maybe some kind of resource management, Tetris style. Now, what the hell's Tetris got to do with this? You'll see soon. Now, another thing that I need to make very clear from the beginning is that Cesar has designed this game with a very specific set of ethics, very sort of a set of rules that you kind of need to keep in mind. There is no violence in this game. There is no killing, no hunting, no stealing or looting. There's no commerce. So there's no greed or treasure to find. But wait. Don't leave. Don't close the video. There's still a great game here. It's like, for example, when the first Euro games came out and everybody was asking, well, you know, where's the combat? Where's the treasure? Well, like with Euro games, they approached games in a different direction, from a different perspective. And this is also very similar. Cesar includes right at the start of the book about it being a world of symbiosis, a world of harmony, a world of sharing, a world of crafting. And that's really how this game needs to be played, as a positive game, a positive influence on the people who play this. And I think that this would be a very good game to get kids to learn how to play, so that they're not fixated on the Call of Duty or the Warhammer style of games, which are fine and good. We all love those kind of games, yeah? But sometimes it's nice to step back from the violence, take a step back from all the greed, the treasure, the gold, and to play a game with more positive elements. And this game could be it. Scraps. Right, so where are we? Well, it is a post-rupture or post-apocalypse world. Unrecognizable, full of the unknown, has vast areas uncharted and unexplored, with communities that can be found full of welcoming groups and providing long-lasting bonds between the characters. It's a game where you go out in search of ingredients and crafting materials, and you map the world as you explore it. You create the world on a hex sheet, using dice and your imagination to solve challenges, problems, and tasks. Your player sheets include grids for projects where you use materials that you find to create beneficial objects and trinkets for your community. So this is quoting from the book itself. At the start, you get this introduction. Welcome to Ayura. I don't know whether I'm saying all these things wrong. You have to excuse me. Ayura. I'm going to call it Ayura. After the rupture, the world went silent for hundreds of years. The magnificent structures our ancestors built were taken over by nature. At one point, long after that, our great-grandparents woke up from their slumber. As they raised once again to the surface, they slowly but steadily uncovered towering, overgrown ruins among inconceivable creatures and plants. With no recollection of what happened before their time, they started a new world, a place of hope, peace, synergy, and beauty. Welcome to Ayura. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that right. But yeah, it is a peaceful world that you are trying to coexist with. Now, it does say that there are some mechanics inspired by Ironsworn, which is a very famous solo RPG role-playing game. I have Ironsworn, I have downloaded it, but I have not printed or read it or played it yet. But I am going to get to it at some point, but it is a pretty hefty document, so it's gonna be quite expensive and use a lot of ink to print out. But apparently, this uses some inspiration from Ironsworn. Also, there are, and this is one of the reasons why I really like this game. There are some elements from Tetris and Battleship within the rules. Now, those are two very well-known, very old games that maybe a lot of us gamers don't play anymore because they're too old or too simple. Well, Cesar, in this game Scraps, has included some of those mechanics from those games. And it makes for a very unique, I mean, from what I've seen, I haven't been exposed to all the games, all games around the world, but very unique to me in terms of how to go about this game. Now, also, page 6, the overview. Here, again, very, very clear, very easy to understand. This kind of sets out a summary, an overview of what the game is going to involve. And again, he highlights that it is strictly non-violent. So you know how to guide the game in terms of what you're going to be doing. Also, the game involves or revolves around collecting ingredients and crafting projects. Well, again, the projects should not be violent in nature. There shouldn't be any kind of expansion or asserting dominance over nature. Again, it's about symbiosis. It's about everything existing together. What do you need to play? Well, the game is written for one player, a solo game. However, on page 7, he has included some information and some guidelines about playing with more players. So you're playing as a group to do the challenges, to do the projects. So there are some guidelines about how to play this with more than one player, but the rules are actually written with one player in mind. You are going to need 3 or 4 6-sided dice. Personally, I would recommend having 2 colors. The reason for this is that on some of the tables that you are going to be rolling on, let's see if we can quickly find one. Okay, like here, you will have both column and row results. So as you can see here, you have a dark dice to show the column and you have light dice to show the row. Now you could, of course, just roll 1 dice twice. So for example, a 2 means here, and then a 1 means playing with a child. Well, instead of doing that, what you can do is use 2 dice of different colors, roll them together. So we get a 6 and we get a 1, 2, 3. Deep diving into the infinite pond. So this is why I would recommend having 2 different colors of dice, just to make it easier, quicker and simpler when you have some of these tables that require 2 different colors. No other reason. Like I say, if you want to just have 1 color dice, or if you've only got 1 color dice, perfectly fine. But I think you're going to need probably 4 6-sided dice. What else you are going to need? Well, it says colored pencils. I mean, you can use a set of colored pencils. We'll explain about what these are used for later. But for my game and for my playthrough, I'm not going to be using colored pencils. I'm actually going to be using colored card. So I've managed to find card of different colors. I think it's a very thin card. I think this is I think it's only 120 GSM. It's not that thick. But I have a number of different colors to replace the color pencils. But again, all will be revealed later. What else? Okay, so you are also going to need a character sheet. Actually, let's turn this over for the moment. You're going to need a character sheet. Now, on the character sheet, there's a bunch of information. You have basic like statistics for your character here, and also some tracks where you need to keep notes of things. You also have 2 grids, one representing your backpack and one representing your workshop. We'll explain these later. As well as the character sheet, you will also need to have a project sheet. And this will have 2 grids, one representing your personal project, the thing that you're making for yourself. And there is also a grid for your community project, something that you are building for your settlement. You will also need a hex sheet, a hex map sheet. Now, you do get one of these with the name Aura, with a compass, with the PDF, but you can also download hex maps from the internet and print those out and use those. Maybe you want larger hexes, because as you're exploring the world, you may want to put some information, or you may want to sketch the terrain type, in which case these hexes are going to be very, very small. But I will probably just write numbers in the hexes, and then in a last point down the bottom, which is a journal, I may actually write in the journal what the numbers refer to. Is it a swamp? Is it mountains? Is it a settlement? So I will probably use a journal and just number the hexes, but it would be very pretty and attractive if you were to actually draw the terrain and everything in the hexes themselves. But maybe for that you'd need larger hexes. But you will need a map sheet or a hex sheet for your world building. And then finally, like I say, you are going to need some kind of journal or notebook. to write down everything that's happening, to help you to create your story. Because at its core, this is not, I wouldn't say that it is purely an RPG. It's more of a roll and write exploration and crafting game. But role-playing will definitely make the game better, and making notes about what's happening will help you to remember previous things, and again will add to the game that you're going to be playing. Now, what does the game actually entail? Well, we will actually be doing gameplay in part 2. In this video, we're going to be, like I've been doing, giving an introduction to the game, giving you an overview of what the game is, and we'll actually start creating our character and our first projects. But in part 2, we're actually going to be playing the game, the journeying, the collecting resources, and the building of the projects. But it follows a 4-phase loop. You start with phase A, which is called the planning phase. And this is where you determine your community project, the thing you're going to be building for your settlement. You're going to be determining what are the special ingredients that are required. These are the things you really have to kind of hunt for and search for. And also you need to prepare for your journey. The second phase, phase B, is the journey phase. So this will involve the traveling. So you will be moving through the map, finding different areas, different terrain, different communities, different obstacles. You will also be scouting and also trying to gather supplies such as provisions and basic materials. It then asks, have you reached a destination? Because when you're doing your traveling, when you're doing this gameplay, you're trying to search for these special ingredients. Now, you know roughly where they are. You are given, or you'll be rolling for which hexes they are going to be in. So if you're not at those special hexes yet, then you basically have to continue traveling. But once you reach one of these hexes that you will roll up, that has your special ingredient that you need for your project, then we move to the third phase, which is the collecting phase. So here you will need to study and approach the ingredients to make sure that it's the right one, that you know how to harvest and take it properly. Because again, remember, this is a game about symbiosis. It's a game about not damaging anything, not causing problems with the environment. So there's also that first step of studying and approaching to make sure we get the ingredient properly. Then we obtain and we harvest those ingredients. Now, this will involve some dice rolling. It may involve some journaling and role-playing as well. Once you've done that, the next question is your journey finished? Has your journey ended? Well, if that is the only special ingredient you need, then yes, you can go back home, which is the last phase. If you have other secret ingredients to find, because again, you're rolling randomly. You may have 1, you may have 3 secret ingredients. You may want to continue to another hex which has the other special ingredients. So then you go back and journey to the next hex. Do you have space in your backpack? Do you have space to carry more items? You may have to go back home and then come out again to actually recover the rest of the ingredients. So you may not be able to do it in one journey because your backpack has limited space. Well, again, we'll talk about that in a second. The fourth phase is going back home. So you will travel home and then you will utilize your workshop. You will use your statistics, your abilities to try and craft the projects that you're doing. You will have to check and see if the materials have been damaged or if they've gone rotten or gone off. There's a lot of things involved with this, but it is simple to follow. Once you've completed your projects, you can then use them. And personal projects can actually give you bonuses later on. Community projects will help you advance in terms of the story. And this is the gameplay. It is a loop. Once you come back to the fourth phase, back home, you do all of this. You then go back to phase A, the planning phase, and you do it again. If you've completed your project, you create another project to do. And you go again and again and again. And this game could go on for many, many, many turns. As long as you can keep coming up with projects, you can keep exploring and finding the ingredients and making those projects and making those items. Now, we will look at each of these phases in part 2, in the second video. For this video, we've had a quick intro. Now, let's create our character. So that is a brief introduction to the game. So now you know roughly what the game is about. But of course you want to know how to play. You want to know how the statistics, how the roles, how the searching, how all this works. Okay, fine. A lot of that's going to be in part 2, but we need to create our character first and determine the first of our projects. So now, you are a scrapper, okay, and you are going to be going out into the world to find ingredients to build projects. Now, like I say, there are 2 basic kinds of project: personal and community. And to help you in your journey to find, to collect, and also to overcome obstacles and challenges, you are going to have 4 basic statistics, which are known as actions, okay? They are explore, discern, extract, and craft. Now, explore is used during the journey phase, which is phase 2, the second phase. Discern is used during the planning phase to seek guidance to help us prepare, but also during the collecting phase, the third phase. Extract is used during the collecting phase to actually get the materials, and craft is used during the back home phase, the fourth phase, to actually try to craft the projects themselves, to make the projects. So all of these actions, all of these statistics, these 4 statistics are really going to be useful. However, we have to assign a 3, a 2, a 2, and a 1 to these 4 actions. So, as you can see, we're not going to be good at everything. So let me get my character sheet. Now, what I'm going to do, let me think. Now, when you are required to roll one of these actions, the actions and the moves are normally things that are underlined. It's a task that you have to do. And normally these tasks are linked with one of these actions. Now, when you have to roll a test, you will roll a number of dice, a number of d6 equal to the value of your skill or your action. So let me think. Okay, so what am I going to do? Okay, so let's say, for example, that I have an explore of 3 and I have to do a task that requires explore. Well, what I would do is I would take 3 dice, because if I have an explore of 3, I would be rolling 3 dice. So we get a 1, a 1, and a 5. Now what you would do is you would take the highest result. The other 2 are put away. So by having a higher value to your skills, you're not necessarily going to get a number between 1 and 18 or 1 and 24. No. It's just giving you a higher chance of getting higher numbers. You're still only going to get a 6 maximum. Yeah. Let's say I had a discern. Let's say I had a discern of 2 and I had to do a task requiring discern. Well, you would roll 2 dice and take the highest. And that would be your result. Yeah, there are some things later on that can give you bonus dice, again, increasing the chance of higher values. But let's have a think. Now, exploring is really useful because it helps me to actually get to where I need to go. If I can't get to where I need to go, the rest is actually pretty useless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the 3 to explore. So the way that we do this is we color in or we shade the boxes which are next to these stats. Discern, seek guidance, collecting to study and approach. I think for that I'm going to, damn it, I want to have high values for everything. I think I'm going to give discern a 1 maybe. And then extract, I'm going to give I've only got 2 2s left. So extract will be a 2 and craft will be a 2. So you're not going to be as good at one thing and wonderful at another. You're going to have a range of values, which again isn't perfect. But then where would be the fun if we got threes in everything? So I have assigned my basic stats: explore, discern, extract, and craft. So I've got a 3 explore, 1 discern, 2 extract, and 2 craft. Right, these boxes here, PP and TP, those are going to be used in the 4th phase, when we actually start crafting and creating. So we don't need to know those yet. I'll explain those when we get to them. Right, what else do we need to do? Well, we also have to find our field of preference. What does that mean? Well, there are different crafting fields, different areas of expertise. But in this game, it's not really expertise because you have skills and abilities in all of them. It doesn't, in terms of the game mechanics and what you're rolling, it doesn't make a difference, to be honest. You don't get any bonuses. I don't know if I've read the rules a number of times, and I don't remember seeing anywhere that says that your field of preference gives you any bonuses. I think it's purely for flavor, for storytelling, and for role-playing. What you're going to do here is you can select the one you want: potions, enhancements, naturalia, trinkets, automatons, and engineering. You can pick or you can roll. It's up to you. I like the randomness, so I'm going to roll randomly. So we just need to roll a d6. So we're getting a 6. We get engineering. Okay, so that is my field of preference. But like I say, it doesn't actually do anything in terms of game mechanics. So that's where I put my name. Where do I put my field of preference? There isn't anywhere. There's nowhere to write it. Okay, I'll just put it up here. So I prefer to do engineering. So maybe what I will do is, maybe for my personal projects, maybe I will lean towards engineering projects. Now, what does it say for engineering? Oh, as I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that for the tables, they have little subnotes telling you which pages will reference this table. So this table is going to be referenced on page 13. I like this. I really do like this. Again, if you look here, you can roll or look at tables 1 and 2. So you can easily reference backwards and forwards the tables and way it's used. Very, very clever. Very useful. Now, engineering. The art of crafting structures and vehicles, windmills, watchtowers, bridges, trains, airships, unicycles, boats, you name it. Okay. As an engineer myself, I think that's going to be quite fitting. Right. So once you have your field of preference, like I say, you can do everything. You can do all these different things, but for storytelling, we need to have a preference. So once that's done, we can actually start looking at the main focus of the game, which is crafting projects. So in this game, as you play, you will be crafting 2 main projects, 1 personal and 1 community. And you can find on the project sheet the 2 construction grids for both of those projects, personal and community. And here you can write down the name of each project. Right, so we first have to think about our personal project, something that we are making for ourselves. A good idea is to use your field of preference to guide the first one. But you could build something else, not a problem. If you think you want to build some kind of robot first, automaton, it's up to you, perfectly fine. You could even go full on random, in which case you can roll on tables 1 and 2. Well, table 1 is here. That will give you the general field for the project. And table 2 is here to give you a little bit more detail as to what the project should be. If you want to go totally random. Let's have a think. Now, completed personal projects can actually aid you in future journeys and future crafting if they're related to what you're building and what the challenges may be. So for example, something like a robot could give you a bonus on crafting, if it's a crafting robot, if it's a robot that is capable of helping you when you're actually doing the building and the construction of a project, he may give you bonuses to that role. So I think, for my first personal project, maybe I could do some kind of personal transport, maybe something like a bicycle or a scooter, which would, maybe it would help me in my traveling, in terms of journeying. So it would, once it's built, of course, once I've collected the stuff and built it, maybe it would actually help me with my traveling tests. That sounds good. But please remember that this game is designed for non-violence, so projects that you create should not be violent. Also, the designer prefers that we avoid expansion or asserting dominance over nature, so all these project ideas and creations should try to work within those premises. Now, once you have the idea for your personal project, you've got to sketch a blueprint. What's that? Well, that is where you draw, using the squares, you draw a silhouette, a shadow form of the thing you're going to be making. They recommend that first projects should be 20 squares in total, but you can also roll on table 3, which gives you a random quantity. Now, this is what I'm going to do because I like doing randomness. So we are going to be rolling. So my first project that I'm going to be doing, my first personal project, is going to be 21 to 25 squares. And like I say, I have to actually draw. Now, if I'm going to be doing something like a bike or a scooter, then this has to kind of represent what that is. And it's got to be 21 to 25 squares, right? Now, the sketch doesn't have to be a work of art, because mine's not going to be, but as long as it kind of represents the item that you're going to craft. So I'm going to just take a few seconds and I'm going to actually draw my personal vehicle that I'm going to be doing. Give me 1 second. Right, I have come up with my personal project. It's going to be a personal transporter. It has a total of 21 boxes or 21 squares, and it doesn't look much like it, but this is like a bike. Got a small wheel at the back, a large wheel at the front, some kind of seating position, and some kind of steering mechanism at the top here. It's just meant to be a silhouette. It's not meant to be detailed. But this is going to be my personal project. So I have to find materials to actually build this this project, this piece of technology that I'm going to create. So we are going to go into the world, and we are going to explore trying to find the ingredients or the materials for these projects, the personal and the community. Now, the community project we'll come up with at the start of part 2, because that's actually part of the first game phase. But the personal is done during character creation. It's now done. And we are going to find, like I say, try and find these materials. Now, the way that this game controls the quantity, the type, the suitability of materials is actually very clever. And it has that Tetris influence. When you find materials or ingredients, you have to roll up their size and their shape. And I'll put up a picture. Actually, no, I can just take you to the page. I have the book here. Why don't I just take you to the page? Right. So when you find materials, or what they call scraps of materials, you have to roll to find their size. So it can be anything from 1 to 6 squares in shape. So it relates to the grids both on your projects, but also your workshop and your backpack. Yeah? All of these are based on grids. On purpose, there is a reason for this, because every material that you find is going to take up a certain number of squares, both for carrying in your backpack, for storing in your workshop, but also for crafting your projects. Now, as well as the size, you also have to roll to determine the shape. So depending on what size your piece of scrap or your piece of material is, you then find the relevant area. So if it's 4 squares, if you rolled a 4, means it's 4 squares in size. You then have to come to the 4 square area and roll again to find out what shape it is. Haha, clever, huh? 5, 6. 6 is actually bigger. It actually goes over here as well. There's a lot of different sizes for the 6s. 3 squares, 2 squares, and of course 1 square. And when you know the size and the shape, you then have to put them, when you find them, you've got to put them into your backpack. So let's say, for example, we find one material, which is this size and shape. So you have to actually put it into your backpack. Now I'm going to be using card and blue tack. You could quite easily just use colored pencils to shade in the different areas, but you have to put these materials into your backpack. Maybe we find a different material, so we have to use a different color. And we have to try and fit all these things into the backpack the best we can. Because the way that this game is designed is that all the different shapes and sizes really does limit how much you can fit in your backpack. It represents how easily it fits inside, whether it's not clumsy, but maybe it's awkward. It's an awkward shape. It won't fit in the backpack very well. And this is your grid that you have to put things in. Maybe we find another material, maybe this shape and size. Well, now I've got to start really thinking, where am I going to put this? Because I've got to make sure that I can fit everything in. But luckily, you can rotate, you can also flip. So for this one, I would probably actually flip it and slot it in there, just like that. So I'm trying, this is where again, that Tetris thing comes in, the Tetris mindset, trying to fit all these shapes and sizes into my backpack so that I can carry it. And as you can see, you get a few large pieces, you're going to end up you're going to end up with not much space left in your backpack. But that's how the materials basically work. Now, the backpack is used when you go out journeying. The workshop is where you're going to be doing all of your work. And this is also where you're going to store ingredients and materials that you bring back. Now, you do start with some basic materials in your workshop. And just like the backpack, it's going to take up space. Now, you start the game with 4 scraps of wood and 4 scraps of stone. And again, you have to roll, you're going to have to roll size and shape for each of those materials that you start with. So each scrap has to be rolled for, they then need to be placed in your workshop grid. Now, you can see here, that's a robot, a robot project with 22 squares. So yeah, your workshop, you're going to be starting with 4 scraps of wood. Here they've used brown, and 4 scraps of rock. Here they've used grey. Now, I don't actually have grey or brown card. So what I'm going to do for my workshop is I'm going to use, what did I say I was going to use? I mean, these are the closest I've got. I've got like an orange, which will be the wood, and I've got this bluey grey, which is going to be the stone. So I've got those ready, so I'll be able to cut those out. Right, so what I want to do now is I want to actually find what is going to be my first pieces of wood and my first pieces of stone. So I have to roll for each of those. So let me just make a note here. So we're doing wood first. We've got to do this 4 times. Where's my bookmark? There's my bookmark. So we go to here, and we're going to be rolling We've got 4 of each, so 4 wood, 4 stone, so I'm rolling 4 dice. So my wood, I have 1 square. I've got a 2 square, a 3 square, and a 5 square. 1, 2, 3, and 5. For my stone, I'm going to have, oh, much bigger. I'm going to have a 1, a 2, a 5, and a 6. Okay. Now let's go on to the shapes. So for the 1, it's easy. It's just going to be a single square. That's easy. That's easy enough. For a 2, again, it's obvious. There's only one possibility. It's just going to be a double like that. 2 square. So 1 square basically is going to look like that. A 2 square is going to look like that. Easy, 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 easy. I'm going to cut these out of the right colors in a minute. Right. 3 squares. Okay, there are 2 possibilities for 3 squares. So we roll, we get a 1. So it's going to be this shape here, a triple lengther. We got 2 5s. All right, so 5s can be any of these possibilities here. So the 5 for wood, again, if you notice there's columns and rows. So I'm just going to roll a dark and a light dice. So it is a 1 and a 2, so it's a T shape. So it's 3 and then 2 down, okay. And then the 5 for the stone, it is a 3 and a 6. So it's a weird sort of W shape, okay. So we have 2, 2 and 1, okay. And then for the 6, for the stone, we get, okay, we get a 6 and a 4, which is that one there, okay. So it is 3 across, and then 2 over, and then 1 down, okay. So these are the shapes that I start with. These are the pieces of wood and stone that I start with. Give me a second and I will cut these out and place them into my workshop. Right, we have cut out from coloured card, our wood, our randomly generated wood pieces and our stone pieces. Now, the use of these various shapes and sizes does bring that puzzle dynamic to the game as you struggle to find space for these items and materials that you find. Also, to find the suitable shapes and sizes to construct your project. Actually, just quickly looking, this piece of wood would be pretty good to go there, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. That's for later. That's for later. But yes, it's a very clever representation of a very critical part of design and construction in order to find the right pieces, to find the right shapes and sizes to actually make the project that you're designing. So using these blocks in different configurations is a very good way to represent finding the right size and shape of materials. But like I mentioned, it's going to be a bit of a problem with the backpack. So these parts are going to go into the workshop. Now later in the game, when you do try to actually craft your projects from the materials, you can attempt to move or remove squares from the scraps in order to make them actually fit or to prevent wastage. You can actually try to save parts of the materials. There are rules for that, but we'll be covering that later in phase D, the back home phase, which will be in video 2. So don't worry, it is coming. But you're not completely fixed with what you're given here. You can modify and adapt, or we can try to modify and adapt, but we'll cover that a bit later. So now what I need to do is actually put these into my workshop. So that's the thing. Now I'm just going to use little pieces of blue tack. I mean, this is just so that I can reuse the sheets. You could use some kind of clear folder or laminate, so you can use dry erase markers or whiteboard markers to actually color these things in, but I prefer this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, and again, you've got to think in terms of where to put these things. Again, when you come back from your journeys, you're going to have other materials that you need to transfer from the backpack into the workshop. So again, you've got to be able to fit it in, otherwise you can't use it. So I think I'm going to... Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one. Now I think in the example they give back here, they've just kind of spread it around anywhere. I think I'm going to have a little bit more structure to that. So what I'm going to do is use a little bit of blue tack just to keep it in place. And I'm going to put this over here, like that. Then I'm going to put one of these single pieces of wood in there, like that. Now I've still got these, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, I could put this there, but I don't want to get confused because I don't want to make it difficult for me to actually see where the shapes are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put it here like that, in that space there. Now, as you can see, I'm having a bit of trouble with the size. One little problem I did find with these with the character sheet, the player sheet, and also the project sheet, is that the grids were actually different size squares. So I tried to kind of do the best that I could and sort of make them all the same, but as you can see, I'm having a bit of trouble fitting these things in. I did print off at about 8mm squares, but I think the boxes here, again, as you can probably notice, I had to print this one and this one at actually different sizes to get the grids to be approximately the same size. But as you can see, it's still not perfect. Right, what else can we do? We can also put this one down here. This is going to be the disadvantage of using this method. I'll put this one down here. I've got another single there. Don't want to put that there, don't I? So this one, come on. I could put this one here. I could put this one here. And then I've got a couple of twos. So I could put maybe down here. Now, you may also notice that these grids also have dice around them. This is actually to determine, okay, sometimes you will be told that something happens to a random ingredient or material. It could be the backpack, the workshop, it could even actually be one of your project. And there may be times when you're told that something goes bad, something decays, something's no good, something's broken, and then you have to roll to find out where on the grid it is. Now, sometimes you'll just be rolling a general area, in which case you use these. You'll be more specific sometimes, in which case you use these. Yeah? So that's the reason the dice are there. Sometimes you'll be asked to kind of destroy or use a certain location. If there's nothing where you roll, it's fine, nothing happens. But if there's material there, it could actually get damaged. But again, that's going to come later. That's just what the dice here are for. Right, so we've placed all our materials into the workshop. I've kind of clustered them all together, which may not be a brilliant idea. Like I say, if we are being told that something's going to get damaged, if I roll low, yeah, something's going to go. Okay, so that is that done. Like I say, I've just used card and blue tack to keep them in place. What else do we have to do? Right, we also have a backpack. With the backpack, you start with 4 provisions. You're going to be using this provisions as you're doing your traveling. So again, it kind of limits how far you can go unless you can find more provisions. So it limits your movement. And again, with the backpack, you've got this whole Tetris thing going on. Okay, we start with 4 provisions. Now, again, in the example here, they've put it into the 4 corners. I don't know whether I'm going to do that. Now, for provisions, I think I'm going to use this dark green color. So what I'm going to do is cut out 4 provisions. Dum dum. Again, it's going to be slightly too large for the grid, unfortunately. I actually wish all the grids were the same size when you printed them out, but Unfortunately, the grids were different sizes. But if I'm going to be using this card, I really need them to be all the same size, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right. So these are my 4 provisions. I'm going to need some more blue tack to fix them into place. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I think I'm just going to put these in one single blob. Again, because I'm a little bit worried. Putting them like this, you're kind of making those corners very difficult to actually use when you find resources, when you find materials. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do this. If the blue tack sticks to the paper and not my finger, so I'm going to do this, that, thump, thump. Again, it's not quite the right size. Maybe I should have printed it at 7mm squares. I couldn't find a 7mm square template. I can only find an 8mm. Right, so I've put, instead of putting them in the corners like they've done here, I've actually just put them into one big block here. As you use provisions, you will actually take them off. Or if you're using pencils, you will rub them out. I always have problems rubbing out colored pencils. That's why I've decided to use this method here. So what I'm using is different colors. Green represents food. This orange is the closest I've got to brown, so I'm using that for wood. And this light blue is the closest I've got to grey, so that's going to be stone. Now, as I find different materials, these special ingredients, I'm going to have to use different colours to represent them, to put here, and then to put here, and then hopefully to put here on my projects. All right, another thing that we need to be aware of, again, these 2 boxes I'll explain in part 2, but we do have these 2 tracks here, opportunity and decay. There will be times in the game when you will be told to take +1 opportunity or to take +1 decay. When this happens in the game, when it prompts you to take +1 decay or +1 opportunity, you basically fill in the next empty box. So if, for example, you have a total of 2 decay, then you will have filled in 2 boxes or 2 circles on the decay track. Now, later in the game, during the traveling, also I think during the crafting, these are going to play a part. Opportunity gives you some bonuses, decay can cause you problems. All right, so that's what these are for. Again, we'll see how these actually work as we play through the game. Right, what else do we need to do? Well, I mean, the final thing we need to do is actually just to give your character a name, give them some kind of brief description as to who they are, where they're from, what are their goals in life, and we are ready to go with the gameplay. Well, I think that's enough for this video. I think the video is long enough. However, I do hope that I have seeded some interest for this game, and I look forward to continuing with part 2, where we begin part 2 by generating our community project in the first phase, the planning phase. Remember, there are 4 phases: planning, journey, collecting, and back home. This is what I'm going to be doing in part 2. So we're going to be going out into the wilderness, searching for those special ingredients, and hopefully being able to craft my little bicycle, my little transport. That's the plan. Oh, and also the community project, which we're going to generate next video. So many thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It has been said that when you do like and subscribe, the dice gods take pity on me. So please don't do it for me. Do it for the dice. So guys, I shall see you in part 2, where we continue scraps. And we actually do the gameplay. We are now ready. We're going to do the gameplay. So take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Many thanks for watching, and I will see you in part 2. Cheers.